All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Amos Peterson on the show, and Amos is the CEO of FarrPro. Welcome to the show, Amos.
Hi, thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, man, awesome to have you. So, Amos is an innovator and serial entrepreneur with a passion for economics. He has founded companies involved in everything from wireless communications to artificial intelligence, even to bioengineering. And he's currently the founder and CEO of FarrPro. And that's a digital animal health company seeking to change the way we grow animals for food with their Sentry precision livestock management system. I know we're going to dive into that, Amos, and explain exactly what all that means and go into your journey and all that. Before we get to that, what's one interesting fact about yourself that not many people know, Amos?
Yeah, so I don't think many people know that I can actually I can control my hiccups, and I've actually taught other people how to do that as
Really?
well. Yeah.
Is it
It's
hard to explain, or
I can explain it. I mean, for your
yeah,
audience, if everyone would like to try it. So,
why not?
yeah, sure. So when you're getting hiccups, right, you can feel
Yeah,
it right in your chest here, right?
yeah, yeah.
So if you thrust your jaw out
Like
while you're
the
hiccuping,
bottom jaw?
yeah, like the bottom jaw, and
Uh-huh.
stretch your neck like that, and then try to like make yourself burp a little bit, right? Like it's that
Huh.
same feeling.
Like that
You
pushing
can,
out, like
yeah, you can unwind that knot in your throat.
really?
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah,
I mean, the only
works
way
every
I've
time.
heard to get rid of hiccups is what the breathe in a paper
Oh yeah.
bag
Oh, breathe in a paper bag, or salt, or
or get
have
scared.
something scare you or something. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, this works every time if you
So
learn how
so
to
I
do it.
extend my jaw out. If I'm getting hiccups, I
Yeah.
try to time it so when a hiccup hits
Uh-huh,
me,
you can
I got
feel
my
it. You can feel the
yeah.
hiccup coming, right? So
Okay.
when the
All right.
hiccup's coming, right, you pull your jaw out like that, so your neck muscle stretched all the way down to
Uh-huh.
where the hiccup is
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
and then you just kind of unwind it with a burp
Yeah, like
sort of,
almost like
right?
you're purposely breathing in.
Yeah.
Do you have to breathe in the exact same time the hiccup's coming,
You just
or
wait
I
for it, and then it kind of it's like an unwinding feeling,
oh,
right?
it's like you're reversing the same
Yeah, it's like you're
action.
reversing the hiccup. Yeah.
Pretty cool, man. I'm
It
gonna have to
works
try it
every
out. It
time.
works every time. All right, awesome.
I don't know. It's
Cool, man. That's an interesting fact. Awesome.
mm.
Cool. So tell us about FarrPro, man. What does it mean when you say Sentry precision livestock management system? What is that?
Yeah, so precision livestock farming is the concept of using sensors and information to improve your operations, right? Your livestock operations. And often that just means taking the temperature in a barn and trying to infer from the temperature how the animals are doing, right?
Yeah.
Or some other environmental
Right.
measurement like humidity. We've taken it all the way down to the individual animal level. So we have a wearable device. It's called the Sentry tracker. It's like an earring that the pigs wear, but it performs the same function as a Fitbit for people.
Oh,
So it monitors their body temperature, body reference temperature, the ambient temperature, and then analyzes their behavior through their head movements. You can dial everything in just from the movements of the head relative to the body, and then that lets us know if the animal's getting lame, getting sick, if they are stressed out, if they're
so
laying
you have
down,
like
eating
this
enough.
profile. You have a profile of like a healthy pig,
Hmm.
and how many times, how much movement they're having, how fast they're
Well,
moving.
yeah, it's a little bit more in depth than that. It's not algorithmic as much as it is driven by uh, behavior models, right? So there's an AI component, and
Hmm.
it's it's adaptable to any other species, but our models
Interesting.
right now are for swine. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's really interesting. Right now we have about 90% accuracy in the six basic functions, which are just standing, sitting, lying, eating, drinking, sleeping, those kinds of things. But you can learn a lot from understanding those behaviors. So
So what do you mean by the six basic functions? So standing, sitting, eating, sleeping, like what about those basic functions?
yeah, so if the animal is starting to go lame, right, which is
Yeah.
it's important to detect that early
Right.
for good health outcomes for sows, for instance.
Okay.
Then you'll see whenever the animal is around a person, because they're prey animals, they actually don't exhibit that lameness behavior, right?
Mm.
But then when they are alone or at night, then they will stand less, they will eat less, they will lay down more often, right? So um, you've got the ability to see the things that people can't normally see because you're watching them 24/7 and they're not aware that anyone's there watching them.
Right.
Conversely, if
Right.
you were to go into a room with the animals, they'd all try to behave like they were well, right? So you wouldn't actually catch the lameness problem until it was critical. Like they actually just could not stand
It's like
anymore.
too late, pretty much.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah, exactly. So,
So, what kind of an impact does this have for swine farmers or pig farmers?
well, it's a pretty massive impact. That's just one of our value propositions, but it's been determined in research that it's worth about $50 per sow per year, early detection of lameness. So, that's really table stakes. And then, other things that we're able to do or will soon be able to do are like heat detection, aggression detection. Uh, Also, if you're looking at, oh gosh, it's a little inside baseball, but there's a metric called average daily gain. It's just how productive the
Yeah.
growing animal is, right? How
Mm.
well it converts feed
Yeah.
into tissue, right?
Yeah.
So that is of high interest to genetics companies,
Mm.
and our technology has determined that animals that are more relaxed and restful
Hmm.
grow at a significantly higher rate than those that are
Right.
just
Less stress
anxious and
on the body.
exactly
Right.
right.
Yeah. All that.
So these are insights that we haven't had before, and
Wow.
it's worth a lot to the industry to be able to
Yeah.
monitor those things. So
Yeah. Really
mhm.
increase their production, their output. Um,
Yeah,
and it's a
and
happier animal too. So the happier
well,
animal, the quality of the meat's gonna be better. Is that a true statement?
that's absolutely right. The less stress, the better the meat, the better it grows. I mean, the happier the employees. No employee wants to be managing animals
Right.
that are in a stress condition, right?
No, it
Causes them
stresses them out.
stress. So, right,
Yeah.
so it's a triple win, actually
Wow.
quadruple win, because we can then take that information and pass it on to the consumer, so they
Right.
know that these animals have been
Yeah.
grown in a way that matches their needs and their
And they could probably charge a
preferences.
little bit
Yeah,
higher of a a
that's right.
cost for
That's
it.
the
Yeah.
decommoditization of a commoditized
Yeah.
protein industry,
Sure.
right? Which
Sure.
is
Yeah.
important because animals aren't like grains of wheat, right?
No.
I mean,
No. It's a whole new value prop.
commoditization, that's right.
Hmm.
Commoditization of an animal has implications that commoditization of grain does not.
So Amos, how did you get into this, man? This is like so freaking niche.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I've always been interested in serving my neighbor, my neighbors, my community,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
the region, right? So
Yeah.
I had some opportunities to go elsewhere, but I began, oh gosh, I think in 2010,
Hmm.
looking for ways that I could bring high-speed internet access to rural communities using
Mm. Hmm.
assets that are commonly found there, like grain bins and towers and things like that. I grew a wireless network to about 400 square miles, and then
Wow.
I started looking at ways that I could deliver the service more efficiently. So that's where
Hmm.
I got into wireless throughput and protocol that uh, would allow us to grow and expand as a mesh network.
Mm.
So that's where the wireless came from, and then as I was looking for funding to expand that business, we ended up selling it off,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then I was looking into ways that we could adapt that same technology for cellular networks, so fail over to a
Hmm. Hmm.
wireless network from the cell in case
Mm.
there was a disaster,
Hmm.
tornado or hurricane comes through and knocks down the cell towers, and
Mm.
then you don't have first responder access to the people that need it right when they need it. So I was
Mm.
looking to address that issue, and working on I was pitching that to local investors who didn't weren't really attuned to the needs of, say, like folks in the Philippines who might have need for a system like that because of the,
Yeah.
typhoons, etc. And I found an opportunity in the pork industry because I'm in Iowa. There are a lot of pigs in Iowa. I think it's like 35% of the nation's pigs are in Iowa. So look for ways to improve that. And since I had been a farm kid and we had grown animals when I was younger,
Right.
I was aware of some of those same smallholder issues. But
Yeah.
as I got introduced to the commercial side of things, it was apparent that they hadn't adopted any technology beyond the tech that we had used in the smallholder farm. So it was really like this underserved area that was in desperate need of innovation. And so I just, rolled up the things that I had learned and kind of went, began studying biosystems engineering and met some great people, went through an accelerator for uh, what was then called the Haven. It was like an incubator that would protect the animals from the harsh environment. And then we split the intelligence part of that off so that it would track individual animals. And that became the Sentry
Wow.
system. So,
Wow, man.
mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
It's just so interesting how we progress through careers and business and get to where we are now. It's what you probably never would imagine when you were
never
doing
in
that
a million years. I
wireless.
swore I would never become a farmer. I swore I would never work with it. Because I had to do it when I was younger. I was carrying frozen buckets of water, through the Iowa tundra, to the animals. And it's a difficult profession. And I swear I would never be a farmer. And I ended up in a place that I never thought I would be. But I get to serve the industry from the other side of things. So,
Yeah, very cool, man. So
yeah.
I know you had mentioned too that you guys were starting to really gain some momentum going into COVID, and then you had some real interesting things happen. Why don't you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So COVID, we had, like I was talking about, the Haven microclimate was in trials with, 6 of the top 20 pork producers, and we had people kind of lined up to try it out, and had just come out with really good data from, both independent laboratories and research institutions, universities, that showed that it could reduce what's called pre-wean mortality by up to 30%. So it was uh, it was really encouraging. That was April of 2020, right? And in late April of 2020, the I don't know if you recall this, but the Packers all got shut down. The meat processing plants
Mm,
got shut down by COVID,
mm,
and everything in the world, everything, at least in this part of the world, including animal ag, is just in time, right? So you get the animals that morning. The animals are processed on the front end. The animals, there's already, breeding going on.
yeah, yeah.
The whole process doesn't stop, right?
Hmm.
So when you stop the packing, the meat processors,
Mm,
everything got backed up behind it, and there was just nowhere to put animals, right?
mm,
So it was kind of a crazy situation. And I think a lot of places, they got creative. They tried to sell the animals locally, or they shifted them around. But the long and short of it was that our technology, which promised to solve a problem, which was, you're not getting enough animals, you're not getting enough production out of your animals because of this mortality loss. Well, that wasn't the
mm,
problem anymore, right?
mm, mm,
Um, and then it was, all of our pilots went dark, or I mean the talks that we had for pilots, and we were just kind of left there, wondering how to serve the industry. What we should do. I mean, I think a lot of people were at that time, right?
mm,
And we looked at the Sentry system, or we looked at the Haven and the
mm,
technology that we built into this enclosure, and thought, it really it it would be easier if we just went full bore on, I mean, this is on a roadmap, but if we just went full bore toward individual animal behavior analysis, right?
Mm.
And just kind of jumped ahead in the roadmap all the way to where we thought we would be, and, raise on that and build that during the period of, uncertainty. And we came out of it with greater partnerships, some new investors, and a technology that is frankly a unique in the world for what it does. So,
Yeah,
mm.
totally. Yeah. So what are the kind of things, I mean, you guys are growing very, very quickly. Did you take on investors?
Yes, we did. Yeah,
Okay.
we've been through 3 rounds of investment now. So,
Okay. Awesome.
mhm.
Awesome. What's how have you been able to, this is just an interesting niche, right? How have you been able to kind of get that market penetration? How are you getting the word out about something so freaking niche?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in in this industry, they're really the sales cycle is long,
Yeah.
so capital has to be a little patient. So, I mean, we've made incredible progress, and we have, maybe the only alternative to, say, implantable behavior monitoring devices in the world is being trialed with, major research institutions and, some of the top, some of the leaders in swine production. But it's been a long time. There are reasons that the pork industry hasn't adopted technology very quickly, right? It's hard to get in. There are biosecurity concerns. You can give flu to an animal, right? So there are also issues, like it's kind of interesting. The producers think of inside the barn as the clean side, right? So you
Yeah.
actually have to shower, completely shower and disinfect yourself to be permitted into a barn, right?
Wow.
It's like, you know, biohazard protocol.
Uh-huh.
So when you're talking about developing in that environment, which is also very caustic, just getting the relationships and the trust build up for them to work with you, takes a while. So that,
Mm.
we have, we've worked on building those relationships over the last few years. And, the good thing is that then becomes a moat, so
Mm-hmm.
once you're in, you're kind of in.
Mm.
And that's really kept us where we are. So, it's that long-term partnerships that make the difference between companies that survive in the pork tech space
Mm.
and those that, kind of fizzle out. So,
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that, if I remember correctly, that one of the biggest failures that you had talked about that might be good to bring up was you had some bad partnerships early on that you had thought, hey, I wasn't able to, or I did not exit them soon enough.
definitely, yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's something you learn. I hadn't been involved in deep in manufacturing before, so
Mm.
I'd done electrical design, but
Yeah.
the heavy manufacturing part
Yeah.
is really just coordinating all of the vendors and supply chain and making sure that you have, in our case, we needed certifications, UL. We were building one of our products is a graphene powered heat mat for animals, right? So, pets can use it, but this is meant to keep piglets warm because they need to be kept warm when they're very young. And you would think it's very simple. It's just, you know, formed plastic, a cord, and a graphene heating panel. But if you if you don't have the right vendors and you don't have I would say like an open and transparent relationship with everyone in that chain, you know, anyone else's problem becomes your problem very
And yeah, it
quickly,
comes right up the
right?
value chain, the
Yeah,
supply chain.
exactly. So there was a little working out, who we could rely on and who we couldn't, and then COVID, the lockdowns didn't help. I think you're I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of stories of supply chain disruption. Well, we were trying
Oh,
to figure it
absolutely.
out at the same time, So, I mean, in one sense, we benefited because we didn't have deeply entrenched
Yeah.
supply chains that
Yeah.
just went to heck, and then, we had to rebuild them. But it was still, it was still an interesting experience. We ended up in fact, one of our manufacturers for this mat, um, just it's crazy. We put in an order,
Mhm.
and we had some critical pilots lined up, and they just decided to stop the relationship.
Oh, wow.
It was the minute that we actually started to scale, they pulled back and said they wanted to focus on core business. So it's one of those things you just learn from experience. And actually, after that relationship ended, we did our own proprietary design,
Yeah.
and we were able to make it easier and for uh, less
Yeah.
cost than the manufacturer could himself. So
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, though. I mean, your relationships, your vendors, we rely on them. They're critical for our business, and if they have problems or if they are unable to, show up, it can literally like it cost you, like you said, hundreds of thousands of dollars,
oh
and
yeah,
just stall the heck out of your company.
I mean, we were burning, and we've been through lean periods, and
Hmm.
I think we were burning quite a bit, during that time, and
Yeah,
really
I bet.
just focused on going as fast as we could. And yeah, wow. So that vendor pulled out, and then I think you'll recall the Silicon Valley banking crisis, right?
Oh yeah, just what, a month or two ago.
Yeah, right. That's fresh in everyone's mind. So we were a week away from depositing our money into Silicon Valley Bank,
Oh wow.
and we had established relationships with some of their investors. We're looking at, operating line and a line of credit for tooling for this. We're pulling manufacturing for some of our products in from China into the United States, and tooling up for that. Just going full bore, and then it's just one thing after the other, right? But you bob and weave and adjust and spend some 16-hour days, reformulating,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's how you get through it.
Come back to the table. Yeah, no, that's
Mm.
all good stuff. Awesome. So let me ask, if you were going to hire a CEO to take the reins for your company, which you will at some point, what's the one book you'd require that they read before taking over for you?
That's a good question. I think the book that I think is the most value dense, I think, for that application in our specific company would be The Innovator's Dilemma,
Mm,
because it really, it gets to the heart of why businesses that ought to have every advantage in the world fail, and why those that seem like
mm,
they're destined to fizzle out often succeed wildly, but then sometimes become those large businesses with inertia that drags
someday
them down
fizzle out.
again, right?
Yeah.
So it's another way to look at the life cycle of a business,
It's almost
and
like
it's
that
helped
one
me a lot.
saying, hard times make weak men. Yeah.
That's
Like it's,
it's something like that, right? Yeah,
yeah,
there's definitely a you know wash, rinse, repeat thing going on
cool.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, let me ask, if there was one takeaway that you'd really want the audience to absorb from our time together today, what would that be, Amos?
I would say uh, persev. I mean, it's been said many times, right? But occasionally you'll see a reporter or someone posit that luck is what drives success in entrepreneurship or startups. And I mean, I disagree 100%. I think
Mm,
the difference between most startups that succeed and fail is that the ones that succeed often look like they were going to fail to everyone
mm,
at some point, and yet the management, the founder, the drivers in that company pushed through and did things they didn't think were possible, right? And that's that's really, that's been my experience through a lot of these recent years. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Cool. Yeah, no,
think
I
of it
love
as,
that though.
yeah,
It's, pushing through that adversity, when you're in that fourth quarter and everybody's not rooting for you and thinks that it's not going to happen and you figure it out.
that's right. You dig deep, one more rep, one more down, whatever it is. Like you don't quit. You don't fail unless you quit.
Yeah. So, coming back to the conversation, just a couple more thoughts came to mind. So, right now you're focusing on pig and swine. Do you? I would imagine you see yourself at kind of. You sounded like you alluded to it going into other livestock and other opportunities. When do you think that's going to happen? And how far out are you?
Yeah, we're already exploring some of those options. We've
Okay.
been in
Cool.
poultry, although poultry economics are a little different. I mean, it's
Right.
kind of a lower value,
A smaller animal,
smaller animal.
bird.
So the technology has to adapt to the wing or the leg or something. But cattle, and especially dairy cattle, are
Yeah.
are good next markets. But we really want to go deep in the pork
Mm.
industry,
Mm.
uh, deep and then broad into some of these other species. And then, in fact, there are applications that, if I could wave a magic wand and go back a couple years, I would have begun to work in human health as well. So, I've had
Interesting.
some, yeah, I've had some recent experiences with, like my young son who had to go to the hospital, and I've seen firsthand how actually, human medicine does not track a lot of this, a lot of these behaviors or a lot of the biometrics while the patients are in the hospital. And, the things that we could learn from, from that information are immeasurably more valuable than what we're doing right now. So
Yeah.
I hope we get to that some point, or that somebody else does, but it's definitely
Cool. Yeah.
um,
But
worthy
but I
pursuit.
love what you're saying about going deep on the swine and just really, they always say it's better to go an inch wide and a mile deep than a mile
Right.
wide and an inch deep, right? Because
That's
that's
right.
where commoditization occurs and
Yep.
competition, and you're gonna go, super, short on the width and then just go super deep,
Mhm.
and that will
Mhm.
just leave. I mean, nobody could ever catch up to you.
Absolutely. That's how you build your moat, and then you're protected as you enter those other markets.
Cool. Awesome,
Mhm.
man. Well, hey, great to have you on the show. If any of our listeners wanted to reach out and get a hold of you for any follow-up questions from today, or perhaps there's a pig farm or swine farmer that, or any kind of livestock that they wanted to reach out and have questions on your product, what's the best way to do that, Amos?
Yeah, you could just reach out to me directly. It's Amos, Amos, at FarrPro, FarrPro.com, or you can hit us up on the website. And yeah, I'd be happy to I'd be happy to respond to any of the outreach or questions that your audience could send my way.
Cool. Awesome. Amos, again, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah,
You have a
cool.
great
So
day. It's great to be
for the
here.
listeners out there, please hit the like and subscribe button and help us spread the word about the show and what we're doing here. We're helping the next generation of leaders and CEOs be that much more successful. With that, this is Patrick Rogers, your host, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot.